Hello, my name is Zoe Leitner, a student at the University of New England in the medical physiology course, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the short and long reflexes of the enteric nervous system and what they consist of. So now we'll switch over to the PowerPoint, and now we will begin the lecture and I'll start explaining these reflexes in the enteric nervous system. Alright, so first we're going to go over an overview of what we'll be discussing today in this lecture. So the enteric nervous system regulates the motility, secretion, and growth of the gastrointestinal tract. It has multiple similarities to the central nervous system. Some of these similarities include intrinsic neurons, which are contained completely in the gut, much like neurons that are intrinsic to the central nervous system and contained only in the brain, for example. There are also many neurotransmitters and neuromodulators in the enteric nervous system, and this includes over 30 neurotransmitters and neuromodulators, and many of them are identical to those that you could find in the brain. There are also some neurotransmitters that are non-adrenergic or non-cholinergic, and so this helps to differentiate them from those in the brain and the central nervous system and circulating in the body. And some common neurotransmitters in the enteric nervous system are serotonin, vasoactive intestinal peptide, and nitric oxide. There are also glia in the enteric nervous system, and these are more like astroglia that are in the central nervous system than Schwann cells that are in the peripheral nervous system around axons and neurons. There are also diffusion barriers, and those in the enteric nervous system are not extremely permeable, so they sort of resemble the blood-brain barrier in that aspect. There are also integrating centers like the brain and spinal cord, which are paralleled in the central nervous system. And so the enteric nervous system is very complex and interacts with the central nervous system, the endocrine system, and the immune system, and these have complex signaling pathways and interactions between them. First, we'll look into the short reflexes. So these initially originate entirely in the enteric nervous system, and so these reflexes will be first caused and then integrated, and the response will all occur within the enteric nervous system. This includes no signaling from other areas, and so other sorts of reflexes may include signaling from the brain, but this does not occur with short reflexes. So it's much like in the central nervous system. Say if one gets their hand too close to a fire, you'll have a reflex from those pain receptors that doesn't go up to the brain. It is only integrated in the spinal cord, and so that helps protect the person from harm at a faster rate than if the signal were to have to travel completely up to the brain and the central nervous system. And so that is paralleled with short reflexes in the enteric nervous system. And so this includes how the lumen of the gut communicates with the submucosal plexus. And so the submucosal plexus can transmit the signal, and it can then control secretion by gastrointestinal epithelial cells, which is important for digestion. So long reflexes then, in contrast, send and receive input from the central nervous system, and so they communicate with the central nervous system, including the brain. And some of these reflexes do come from the digestive tract, say from sensory neurons in the digestive tract, but others can come from outside of the digestive tract and still affect what is going on in the enteric nervous system. And so this can include autonomic control of smooth muscle and glands, and these are things that can originate outside of the enteric nervous system. This also includes sympathetic and parasympathetic autonomic control. And so I'm sure that you've heard the term rest and digest before. So the parasympathetic system will upregulate activity of the enteric nervous system. So we call that rest and digest because more energy is being directed towards the digestive system when the body is in a relaxed state. And then on the contrary, on the other hand, the sympathetic pathways are inhibitory, so they will inhibit functioning of the enteric nervous system and redirect energy stores from the enteric nervous system and the digestive tract, where they may be, although it's a necessary process, it may not be very necessary during a very stressful situation. And so I'll go into that a little bit more in detail with things like emotional stress and other things that are included in long reflexes but are more specific. And so these things may indicate to the body that there is a threat. And so with the fight or flight response that we associated with sympathetic signaling pathways, less energy is directed towards digestion. And this is something that happens when the enteric nervous system is communicating with many other body systems, including the central nervous system, through long reflexes. So now we can look at this schematic that is taken from Silverthorne, and we can observe how long and short reflexes occur and affect the enteric nervous system. So you can see that the enteric nervous system can be called the little brain because there really is a lot going on there. And so if we have interneurons here in the enteric nervous system, we can see right here, this would include just the short reflexes. And so those will be carried out completely within the gut. And so then we can also have a variety of long reflexes. And so some of those come from outside the digestive tract. And so we can see that with these stimuli that are occurring over here with local stimuli, such as osmolarity and acid that are in the body, and then cephalic reflexes, which I'll go into on the next slide, that originate in the central nervous system and may not include signaling from the enteric nervous system. And so then these travel through sensory receptors in both situations and then act on the enteric nervous system. And so then there will be other repercussions of this, including control of smooth muscles and exocrine cells that can release other hormones, or things such as enzymes, acid, and bicarbonate that control digestion. And then we can also have peptides that are released, which can go to the brain or other receptors on, say, the pancreas that can influence how we are perceiving the food that is being eaten and how we store it. So signals might go to the brain that indicate that we are full, that the body has taken in energy, which is very important that that signal is transmitted. Or if we're affecting the pancreas through endocrine signaling, it could tell the body that we need to produce insulin or glucagon. So say if the glucose content of the meal is very high, that could cause the release of insulin, versus if the body is sensing that it does not have very much glucose, that could stimulate the release of glucagon, which could then cause hepatocytes to break down glycogen into glucose and give us a form of energy. So now, for our last topic, we're going to go into the cephalic reflexes, which are another branch of the long reflexes of the enteric nervous system. So these originate outside the digestive tract and are signals that come from the brain. And these can include feed-forward reflexes that may prepare for digestion that the body is anticipating. For example, this could include seeing and smelling food. So, for example, everyone knows what that feels like when you are at the restaurant awaiting food and you can smell the food coming and see it coming, and you are actually having a physiological response when that is occurring. cephalic reflexes can also include emotional reflexes, which have an influence on digestion as well. So, for example, if one is nervous or anxious, this could prevent proper digestion, or things like butterflies in the stomach when one is nervous can be an example of that as well. So that is all that we have today. Thank you.